Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a quick spin through the biggest talking points in MMA. Normally, another Simon sits in this hosting chair, but Simon head is off today. And you guys have me. I'm Simon Samano, and today we've got plenty to discuss with MMA Junkie Radio's gorgeous George and Goze in Las Vegas, as well as MMA Junkie reporter Nolan King in Boston. Welcome, guys. Let's get right to this. There's lots to discuss. And there really is no other way to kick things off but with Israel Adesanya's masterclass in Saturday's middleweight title fight against Paulo Costa at UFC 253. The fight promised to be competitive, and there was plenty of heat between them, but Adesanya simply made it look easy until an early second-round TKO finish to keep him undefeated. Now, given just how impressive Adesanya was, my question to you guys is simply this. What's your biggest thought or takeaway from Adesanya's performance? We've got 3 minutes on the clock, and George, you're up first.
Guys, what I saw on Saturday was brilliance, mettle, championship mettle, and grit. But that was the Los Angeles Lakers taking out the Denver Nuggets. That's right. Now, Israel Adesanya, he was brilliant as well. He went out there and took out an undefeated fighter, the clear number one contender, and a rival where this thing had been built up for the last couple of years. He rose to the occasion. I mean, everything he did was right, including the post-fight already laying the groundwork for Cannonier. So as a fan, as someone in the media, you already know what this guy's aspiring to do. He wants title defenses, and eventually he wants to get to that point where he can maybe move to another division or start having super fights. The guy is on his way, man. I love Israel Adesanya and what he did. And he fought with a chip on his shoulder. Don't think that he didn't probably read every headline or every story that had to do with the fight that he had with Yoel Romero. And look, Izzy, you kind of take that a little bit because that wasn't your best fight, nor Romero's best fight, nor one of the best title fights we've ever seen. But you did come back, and all's forgotten.
George hyped up about Izzy's performance. Goze, what was your biggest takeaway from Izzy's fight on Saturday night?
Well, look, I mean, it's definitely one of the best title performances we've ever seen. He did everything he said he was gonna do, and he was matched up against the guy who was putting pressure on him in this fight. He didn't throw a lot of strikes, but he was moving forward. And so I think Izzy solved a lot of questions here. But the biggest takeout for me, two of them. One, the guy went from being what I thought was a great fighter to now a superstar in our sport. And the second one was, this is the first time for me since all this talk started with Jon Jones that I actually felt like there could be something here. I really feel bad that Jon Jones is heavyweight now because I actually do want to see this fight with Israel Adesanya. He showed us a lot. He looked different. He looked mean. If I'm Jon Jones in that, I'd be thinking, man, thank God I'm up to heavyweight. So those are probably my two biggest takeaways from that.
Yeah, really good point there about Jon Jones because it really does seem like Izzy is just rounding into that star. Nolan, what was your biggest takeaway from Adesanya's performance?
Kind of going off of what Goze said, I think that, Adesanya has always been a great fighter, since we've seen him in the UFC. Everybody knew he was destined for greatness. It was just a matter of how great. And I think on Saturday night, UFC 253 against Paulo Costa, he proved that he's by far the best middleweight in the world. So much so that my biggest takeaway was, I don't know who can beat him. I don't know who is out there at 185 pounds that you can go into a fight against Adesanya and even think that they have, a solid chance to win. I think that if he fights Cannonier next, if he were to rematch Whitaker, if he were to fight Jack Hermanson, like you got Darren Till, I don't see any of those fighters being even, close in the betting odds to Izzy. I just think he really proved that he is that much better than somebody like Costa, who is sitting atop that division as well. So for me, he's going to be a hard guy to beat. And I think he solidified himself, not only as a champion, champions wear belts, but also the number one middleweight in the world.
Yeah, really just a fantastic performance from Adesanya, and it really does seem like right now the world is his oyster.
Yeah.
Moving on, guys, Adesanya wasn't the only one to oppress in a UFC 253 title fight on Saturday night as Jan Blachowicz dominated Dominick Reyes to claim the light heavyweight belt that was vacated by Jon Jones. Now, afterward, we had Blachowicz saying he wants Jones to come back to the division so they can fight. So my question to you guys is, would you like to see that happen? Or are you happy with Jones still moving to heavyweight while Blachowicz goes ahead and deals with the current crop of contenders at 205 pounds? Put 3 minutes on the clock. Goze, start us off.
Look, guys, I hate the thought of Jon Jones coming back to light heavyweight for a few reasons. The first one is this. With all the interim titles being thrown around, with fighters vacating and other fighters fighting for BMF titles, the UFC title has never meant less at this current state right now. This belt should represent a lot for these fighters, something that they work their entire lives for, something they should be compensated money-wise, and it should have a status that makes them never want to give it up. So to let Jon Jones give it up and then just come back, I think sends the wrong message to some of your fighters, especially for the future. The second thing is this. If you're Jon Jones, personally, I think it's a bad look to take off. Then the guy that almost beat you loses, and now that he's out of the picture, you come back. That's not a very good look for the former light heavyweight champion. So personally, I wouldn't do it for that, but those are my main two reasons.
You know, Blachowicz has looked really good, though, these last 3 fights, I guess 4 fights in a row now, or 3 wins in a row, looking really mean. And part of me thinks maybe, hey, you know, that's the one fight I'd like to see. But Nolan, what do you think? Would you rather have Jon come back to fight Blachowicz, or are you happy with the way things are if he just continues to fight the current contenders?
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm very happy with the way that things played out because I think there are options. I think that by Jones leaving 205 pounds and vacating his belt, he went from, you know, a fight against Blachowicz that people would have watched. You would have said, oh, you know, he's fighting a new guy, a guy that's a resurging, a guy that's always been in the top, 15, but he's resurging and he's on a roll. And now, I mean, if you look at he's from the outside looking in, and Blachowicz' name is built now. I mean, he's a UFC light heavyweight champion. A lot of people are saying, oh, you know, Jones got out just in time. He got out of the division. That fight sells itself now. It sells itself way more than it would have if Jones had the belt and he just fought Jan. So I like where we're at with these options. For me, I think that at this, you could always fight the next contender at 205 pounds. So I prefer to see him at heavyweight as a fan. And as somebody, if I was Jon, I'd want to build my resume a little bit more. But if he goes back to 205, he has a pretty big fight waiting for him.
George, what say you? You agree with Nolan, or you lean towards your brother's way?
Well, I gotta say that point that Goze made about it looking like he ran away, from Reyes, the rematch from Reyes. A lot of people will buy into that. Jon's the GOAT, man. He's fought everybody, and I like that move of him going up to heavyweight to kind of cement the legacy that he's created, by maybe acquiring a second belt. And what he does is, at least he was kind enough to say, all right, vacated, and now he's moving up. He cut the queue a little bit. He's going to get ahead of Blades and Jairzinho and all that. But look, if you're coming right back down, I'm down to see the matchup. Don't get me wrong. And with Rumble coming back, and Jiri Prochazka and Alexander Rakin, I mean, it's going to be amazing at 205. But then let the heavyweights do their thing and just go on without you.
Yeah, regardless of what ends up happening here, I think Jan deserves a big congratulations. I mean, before Jones vacated, he was a distant third in who we were talking about, who should be next for Jon Jones. We were all talking about Thiago Santos. We were all talking about Dominick Reyes. And he was a distant third, so congratulations to Jan for becoming the champion. Let's move on, guys, and let's talk about the losers in those 2 title fights, Paulo Costa and Dominick Reyes. Now, they're both basically in the same stages of their careers. Costa is 29, Reyes is 30. They both got 14 professional fights on their resume, and neither of them had tasted defeat until this year. Of course, Reyes lost in controversial fashion to Jon Jones several months ago. So what I want to know from you guys is, who do you think is more likely to pick himself up off the mat and get back into a title shot? Costa or Reyes? We got 2 minutes on the clock this time, guys. Nolan, lead us off.
Yeah, I think it's definitely Paulo Costa. As much respect as I have for Dominick Reyes and being a fighter who kind of stays true to himself, and people have always called for him to you got to talk more trash, you got to be more interesting, and he hasn't. I respect that, but on the same, in the same breath, Paulo Costa did a great job promoting this fight with Izzy. He's even coming out after, and he called Izzy a piece of human trash or something today in a video. So trash talk sells fights, and we've seen guys jump the line because of promotability before. So I'm going to say Paulo Costa.
Nolan's going with Paulo Costa. George, who do you think, Reyes or Costa?
I'm on the other side. I think Reyes has a better chance of coming back because when you can go 5 rounds with the GOAT, and like Nolan was saying, a lot of media gave him that fight, that has to boost your confidence. Now you come in, I don't know if he was overconfident, because I don't want to take anything away from Blachowicz, who fought great, but you've experienced that loss too. I just think that mentally he's overcome a lot. If he can just take like a little bit of a 6 to 9 month break, I think he'll come back, and I think he'll have a really, really good run and be a champ. I think Costa now has to deal with the disappointment, and the anger that he's going to have for not fighting his fight. He has to go through all that, almost like stages of grief. I hate to sound so morbid, but if he can pick himself up and come right back, then maybe I'll be wrong. But he just came up so short against the champ. I like Reyes' chances better.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, the mental aspect of losing, as tough as it is, losing a really heated grudge match is kind of a whole other thing. But Goze, what do you think? Costa or Reyes? Which one can come back?
I get to be the tiebreaker. I like Paulo Costa. I mean, come on. Really, how damaging is it to lose against a freight train like Israel Adesanya, who's only going to get better? Every win is going to prove just how difficult that fight was. So really, right now, if you look at Dominick Reyes, no matter who he's faced, even though it's been two really tough guys, those are 2 losses, and you have to build yourself back up. So I think it's pretty easy, guys. I think it's Paulo Costa.
Yeah, I'd say it's tough. It's a 50-50 toss-up, but I think you guys, all 3 of you, made some excellent points. All right, guys, let's move on now, away from UFC 253, but still kind of in UFC 253, where a big point of discussion after the event was UFC President Dana White saying that it's, quote, very possible that the UFC will make a fight between former best friends turned enemies Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington. Now, this comes after it originally been reported that a rematch between Masvidal and Nate Diaz was in the works for January 2021. Now, Covington badly wants the fight, and he's put the pressure on by saying the ball is in Masvidal's court. So if you're Masvidal, key there being is if you're Masvidal, why should you take the Covington fight next over the Diaz rematch? Or why shouldn't you? We go 2 minutes on the clock, guys. George, you start us off.
All right, here's the deal. I understand Masvidal is a prize fighter, and he played that card. Hey, look, you want me to fight Usman for less money than I made in the Diaz fight? So I can see where he would want to be guided. But the minute Covington said, whoever wins is the king of the 305, Covington's not originally from the 305. He came in and he stayed with Masvidal and he adapted to the 305, whereas Masvidal is the king of the 305. But once he laid down that gauntlet, man, I don't know if you can just back away from something like that. I think this is a huge fight. I think there's going to be just as many eyeballs because of Covington coming off his great performance. That's the fight to make. Diaz just is going to have to wait.
Goze, what say you?
Listen, guys, if you are Jorge Masvidal, you have no choice. You're the BMF. You don't run from anyone. You have to take this fight. And even before BMF came along, it's in Masvidal's blood. If somebody insults him, he's going to catch up to you. So he has to take this fight. It makes the most sense for him right now. And I'll be honest with you guys, 25 minutes, that ain't enough for me. So the way I want to take all this madness is, I want to take it in, making them tough coaches. I want to see this play out over weeks and then a big fight. And chances are we'll probably see a couple fights.
I mean, the UFC wouldn't do a press conference with Colby Covington just a few years ago. This guy wants him on tough for an entire season. Nolan, go for it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as a fan, Covington-Masvidal is the fight that interests me more. I feel like the Diaz-Masvidal ship has sailed. But from Masvidal's perspective, I'm a little surprised that maybe he wouldn't want to get that BMF fight out of the way, just because I feel like it's sort of now or never. If he goes out and he beats Colby Covington, who's a top contender, he puts himself right at the top of the division again. He can say, "Oh, I didn't have a full camp the first time when I lost to Usman. Let's do it again." Whereas, if he goes out there and if he goes out there and loses to Covington, he can't really claim BMF anymore, so that fight's gone. And if he wins, like I said, it's gone too. So I thought he would have gone for the money. I thought he would have gone for Diaz, for the fight that extends outside our MMA bubble. But I'm not Jorge Masvidal, and yeah, it's probably good for him that I'm not.
Yeah, guys, I'm with Nolan on this. I think that you got to strike while the iron's hot to make some money, and making money at this point, he's going to make more money with Diaz rematch, just because he is. And if he loses it, I feel like he risks not being the BMF anymore. You can't then fight Colby. So we'll
Simon, I want to break protocol here for just 1 second. I know we're over time, but a lot of this stems from what happened at ATT. Jorge Masvidal said, set up Colby with my coach, Paulino. That's the allegation there, and he stiffed them. So I'm telling you, these guys have to settle it.
Well, I want to see both fights. How about that? We'll just settle at that. Let's see both fights. All right, guys. Moving on to our final topic this week. Now, forgive me if you've heard this, but it seems Conor McGregor isn't committed to his retirement. Shocker. With the former UFC champ teasing that he's in talks now for a boxing match with Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao's camp confirmed as much. Meanwhile, Dana White continues to act like he knows nothing about this. So we've been down this road before, guys, with Maymac. That was Mayweather-McGregor 3 years ago. So now I ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, give me your interest level in Pac-Mac. Goze, start with you. 2 minutes.
I got a 10. Oh, wait. -10. Guys, we've been through this already. Come on. There's nothing left to prove. We saw what happens when a mixed martial artist gets in the boxing ring. It's nothing against Conor McGregor. He's a great mixed martial artist, but there's plenty of people in his division. There's plenty of guys to fight. Don't hold things up. Keep the ship moving. Come on. We all know boxers have a little bit of an ego now. They got one on us. In the boxing ring, yeah, you guys got us. In MMA, in the cage, we got you. But guess what? On the street, we know what will happen. There's no need to go down this road again, guys.
Nolan, scale of 1 to 10, how interested are you in this? Is there any reason to be interested in a McGregor-Pacquiao fight?
Yeah, there's definitely interest. Anytime there's a McGregor spectacle, I have to give it at least a 5, but that's what I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it a 5, right in the middle, because on one hand, sure, we get to see McGregor fight. It's a crossover. It's two of the all-time great combat sports fighters getting to compete against each other. Don't get to say that very often. On the flip side, as an MMA fan, I want to see McGregor inside the cage. I think we've had enough talking and back and forth with various fighters inside the MMA sphere, and we need to see him compete in the cage again. I would feel like we missed out on something if he never comes back and stays retired. But on the hypocrisy scale, I would say that I'm on 100 out of 10, because when the time comes to watch this, I'll definitely watch it. I'll be doing coverage on it, and I really will prove to be a hypocrite when that time comes.
Just can't take your eyes off the train wreck.
Yep.
George, what say you? Scale of 1 to 10.
A 1 or a 2 at best. If a boxer promoter walks into the SBG gym today and says, "Hey, one of these guys wants to fight MMA," the whole gym would just fall over and start laughing. Look, they don't belong over here. We don't belong over there. Maymac, we should learn from there. I don't want to see Maypac.
You already saw Maypac.
Mac
We're going to
Pac.
see Macpac.
Yeah, Macpac. Yeah, there you go.
We want to see either of them.
All right, guys. Well, on that note, that's it for this week's episode of Spinning Back Clique. Thank you to George, Goze, Nolan for the insight as always. We've got a Bellator doubleheader this week. We've also got another UFC fight night from Fight Island, UFC on ESPN 16 on Saturday. And we will cover it all next week on the Spinning Back Clique. So long, everybody.